Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain, so.
Okay, I'm going to wait for the accurate date keeper to let us know, what date it is today. But I know that the person who's also manning the countdown calendar is also in Lagos. Good morning and welcome. The Harmattan is pretty serious around here, affecting voices, affecting noses, affecting the skin, so stay moisturized. Good morning and welcome. Amal, welcome, Yusuf.
Well, I can't help it. It's about 48 hours to Christmas. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
Well, good morning and welcome. Today is December 22. Amaya Makinde.
What's going on? I thought you were going to give us some verb. Come on, put some life into this.
Come on, Chamberlain. Everything else has been said.
From the market.
Oh, the markets are not smiling.
Everything else has been said, guys. Come on. Besides, whether you even look at that, whichever way you look at it, it really does depend on you, whatever perspective of the whole thing you look at it. Because on the one hand, some people are celebrating the president's largesse, so to speak, of 50% of transportation for some people. And then I hear that there are other transporters angling for the same thing. So different stroke, Chamberlain. I haven't heard the airline operators go to the president. So, hey, Chamberlain, it's up to you.
I'm not an airline operator, I'm afraid, so how is he up to me? I'm not in AON. I don't even think there's any immediate plan, unless you're seeing way beyond what I can see or know at the moment. But of course, the Minister of Information was speaking about that as well yesterday in terms of what they say the president, what the government has put in place. But, I mean, as much as they will always talk about what they've done, how they're trying to ensure things go right. But I think the jury is still out there in terms of some of the key things that many people want to see is how it impacts the markets. So when you get out there, your purchasing power, they want to see some of those things. Those are the immediate things that affect people when they get out there for Christmas. So they can have fuel in the tank to move around in good time without thinking twice. They'll be concerned. If they can't also, besides, we also like to hear from you. Well, many of you, we got a lot of inquiry yesterday in terms of which of the vehicles, where do you go to the parks. They've been able to announce it now, so we hope you did catch some of those announcements. And so the NRC, Nigeria Railway Corporation, did also inform us of how much, if they're going to, even though they said it was free, but of course, it's not going to be free as such because they're providing funds for them for diesel, and then I'm not sure they provided for the cleaners, the maintenance. So, let's get your perspective in terms of what you think about it. They did tell us, though, that yes, they will get the data, and so they don't expect that monies will just go down the drains. And some other people thought, well, for those who may not be exactly happy about that, thinking it's waste of funds, they should also remember that government equally funds things like pilgrimage, Christians, Muslims, so they're asking, why should we continue with that? If people feel that, they want to go on pilgrimage, what's wrong if they go with their own funds for it? After all, we're focused now on the economy to see where can we cut costs to make sure things go right so that businesses and jobs can be created. I don't know if sponsoring people for pilgrimage creates jobs, but so you'll always have those kinds of arguments in democracy, such as ours, people just watching to see. But above all else, I'm sure many will be happy if government plugs those loopholes, those leakages, those line items, corruption challenges that we do have. They beat their chest saying, look, if that were to happen, you have a lot more resources to move around in different places to ensure that businesses and companies work for you and I.
Okay, so what's there to add to that now? I mean, I'm just looking at I've been thinking really, I mean, my mind started doing overtime or overdrive the moment I heard pilgrimage. And it's been that's a very interesting angle. Some people have argued that, look, even in the religion, in Islam, where it is compulsory, it's one of the pillars of the faith, one of the 5 pillars of the faith, that if you're able to afford it, you know, you should go to Mecca at least once in your lifetime. You should be able to make that pilgrimage once in a lifetime, if you can afford it. So some people say, okay, there is a case for that. But then, you know, even the faith puts a caveat there. It's compulsory, but that's only if you can afford it. If you cannot afford it, it's not going to, you know, I don't know if there will be any consequences for that. But from those who know, they've told us that this is exactly what the faith says. But, you know, those who, religious leaders and maybe politicians, figured, well, this is one way we can actually help our citizens, from whom faith is very important. And then you now have the Christians who say, oh, you're doing for, then we also have to get as well. And then, you know, this tradition starts where, you know, government starts to fund it. But when we now look at how much we're spending on it on a yearly basis, and how, you know, we're not even doing it properly, sometimes our pilgrims are left, you know, in conditions that are less than dignifying. There's many complaints around. Some states get it right, some states don't get it right, and how much we're truly spending compared to other things that could actually better the lives of our citizens, such as education. I mean, things that we could invest in, such as education, such as healthcare, such as social services, such as you know, infrastructure, etc., agriculture. When we fund these to the detriment of these other things, we have to ask ourselves very deep questions, very fundamental questions. So I already told you my stance yesterday with regards to the 50% reduction. As Mr. Alaolu Akonde also reiterated, it's a good idea. It shows that government, you know, really wants to be able to help the people. But, you know, there are people who also have, and you know, rightly so, they have very good reason to have their doubts as to how it's going to be implemented. It is now left for government to show us. And I think also for journalists to stay on the matter, to ensure that the resources, because at the end of the day, government money does not belong to people in government. It belongs to all of us. We have chosen these people to manage them on our behalf. So it now behoves on them to manage it in such a way that at the end of the day, we, their masters, are pleased that they have used our money judiciously for the benefit of the greatest majority. That's exactly how it should be. So why they justify, I mean, they can talk to those who are skeptical about the process at the very start and say, look, we have this. We understand what we're doing. Journalists have a duty to ensure that, you know, people monitor how it is going in the past, perhaps even bring more enlightenment on how people can benefit from these, I don't want to use the word largesse because it's not appropriate, but from this windfall, as the case might be. Okay, we'll move from that. At the end of the day, at the end of the 15 days, we ought to be in a situation where we're not the ones pursuing governments to come and tell us how much they spent and how the process was like, or what they... It should be in their own best interest to say, this is what we implemented, these were the loopholes, these, you know, were the things, these are the things that we've learned, and this is how we hope that if we're to implement this again, you know, this is how we'll do it better. It should be on them. It shouldn't be us pursuing them all of the time. As of today, we should even be getting people who are saying, you know, we want to... Mr. Laolu was here. I don't know why I keep making reference to him, maybe because he has a program coming up immediately after now. And I'll advise that you stay tuned immediately after 9 o'clock to see that program. Inside Sources, it will be for your benefit. I promise you. 9 a.m. But he was saying that usually in government when intentions, I mean, come out, good intentions come out, if you do not have somebody who is constantly on the matter, that good intention and the implementation can fall through the cracks. So it should be in the best interest of the people who have made the announcements to actually, you know, see monitor how this is actually being implemented. Are people satisfied? Take some feedback a few days after and see how it is that it is going. And then there should be a call, or let's say feedback mechanism from the people. If there has been any disappointment in terms of how it's been implemented, or they are dissatisfied with the services being provided by those whom government has chosen to implement this, there ought to be some feedback mechanism. But, Chamberlain, people are allowed to speak. They are citizens. It is a democracy, you know, and it is up to government to do the work and afterwards still be accountable on top of it. Bukola and Ayo.
Makwe, you appear very, very passionate about this 50% reduction thing. It's not going to go away even the day after, you know, but it's pretty much understandable because, you know, what's important during this Yuletide and beyond for Nigerians is for their purchasing power, you know, to increase. And that should be the target of the administration, for inflation to be brought down significantly. And, you know, one of the ways to doing this is to reduce transportation costs, you know, which would plug some of those holes in the pockets of Nigerians. And that's why I align with, you know, one of our guests yesterday, the professor, who not because he didn't support it, but because he was more emphatic on the need for such a policy, you know, to be implemented on a more enduring basis rather than on a one-off. Speaking of plugging loopholes, I didn't miss that bit of the conversation as well about the need or the needlessness, so to speak, you know, for governments to continue to subsidize pilgrimages. And, you know, that's where I'd like to come in. You know, if we see religion as a personal thing and, you know, it's something that is done in the private corners of the individual, then the individual should take responsibility, you know, for it. And perhaps there could be some savings that could be recouped from there at the state level and at the federal government level that can be plowed back into other areas where it would enhance our productivity as a people. But that really is not the only place we should be looking at. In fact, that's one of the most insignificant, you know, places of revenue being spent where we really do not need it. We can't talk enough about how governments continue to call on Nigerians, appeal to Nigerians to make sacrifices. But where are the sacrifices, the areas where government officials themselves are making their own sacrifice? You know, when we speak with our lawmakers, more often than not, they're non-committal about whether or not they indeed received vehicles worth 160 million naira. What exactly is the number? Why do we have the budget, you know, of you know, one arm of government being 1/4, you know, of the budget of a state that caters to millions of people? Why do we have the budget of, you know, the executive, for instance, being 1/4 of the budget of, you know, a state? These are the areas, you know, government should lead by example. You know, these are the areas where revenue leakages can be plugged. These are the areas where in the outcome of this budget scrutiny process that the National Assembly is embarking upon, we should see some reduction and increase in the personnel costs and the running costs, you know, of key ministries, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education. The other day we were talking with the Director General of NAFDAC, and she talked about how they need more personnel to be able to effectively fight against the menace of, you know, counterfeit drugs, food and beverages. If government is truly committed to the social contract, they should begin to take these matters more seriously. Ayo.
Well, a lot has been said about, you know, at the end of the day, what we are talking about here is how government initiatives affect the people directly. Chamberlain was talking about the market prices, you know, and so many other angles to that particular matter. You know, the price of gas has hit the roof, the price of, let's not even talk about the price of petrol in various parts of the country. The basics are high. Rice, oh gosh. It's like about the cheapest thing that people can even come across now, the cheapest luxury that most Nigerians can come across now. And guess what? Even that is on the high side. Well, we are talking about urban Nigeria, perhaps, because that's where we all are. But the rural areas aren't smiling any better, because insecurity in various parts of Nigeria has directly affected people in the various localities where they live. It goes back to what Markwe emphasized yesterday about ensuring that the systems of government work, particularly from the local level, and then they will spiral, they will go all the way up to the national level. So who is paying attention to those things? We're grateful. I mean, at least some people can benefit, have benefited, and are benefiting from the 50% reduction that the president, announced, and the government announced, and they are already benefiting from it. But how about the markets and other things like that? Most of the time, it is not even the government that determines the prices. It's the people that determine the prices themselves. Because when the prices of whatever else rises and they have to go to the market to buy some of those things, they reflect the prices on their own wares, on the things that they are selling themselves. The person who is selling a charger increases the price because the price of tomato in the market has also increased. Transportation costs has increased, and all those things. All those are our realities. How we internalize them, how we live with them, particularly in this Yuletide, that's another matter altogether. There's so many other issues that we'll be looking at, maybe on the front pages of the dailies. Chamberlain?
Yeah, absolutely so. So wherever you are, however your day is going, hey, we'd like to share some with us. Tell us, what is your environment like this period, this season? So are there things going on that you want the attention of the authorities so that they can correct it? By all means, let us, so that we'll push it out there for you all, just in case. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take you through some of the dailies here this morning. I think there's going to be one day where there'll be no dailies, they'll be on break. So
yeah, I think
prepare for that.
Happens for the new year or so.
So prepare for that. So you can imagine then if there is one of such days where the press blanks out every information in protest or something.
Let's not do one day, let's do 1 week.
What? You see, I was talking about 1 day.
I don't know. I wonder if they'll miss as much, though. I mean, there's social media. Well, who's feeding social media?
That's the problem, because social media, do they have people well, look, another story for another time, I know. Take a look at Vanguard newspaper. 50% fares cut. FG rallies to pay transporters. Help Nigerians by reducing petrol costs. Transport operators tell FG. This is part of what we highlighted yesterday too. Vow not to comply with 50% transportation fare reduction. Okay, so you need to put this in context. I don't think it was a blanket order. I think they're reaching out to a few of those transport companies to pay for some of those. So if they're going to pay some of those, you can't vow nothing. Because if you accept the deal, you have to do for your own end of the bargain. But this is what is reported anyways. And then you see...
I was going to ask you to repeat it.
Which one? Where they're saying they're vowing not to comply with 50%? Nah, it's just those who are not in the scheme. So they can say whatever they want.
Yeah, those who are not in the scheme, I mean, they have no obligation.
So why vow then?
What's the vow about?
Why we picked 5 transport firms for Yuletide ride ascribed to FG. So you see, 5 transport firms. So if these 5 were the ones picked, and they vow not to, I doubt it. Chisco, Young Shall Grow, God is Good. 2 others make list. Luxury bus owners commend FG. Mobilize members for implementation. Traders, customers blame fuel subsidy removal for low patronage. So, all there for you on the front page. And this is really concerning here, just beneath this lead story. NBA demands prompt release of kidnapped judge, driver in Akwa Ibom. So, I mean, for a while, you never heard any of such narrative from Akwa Ibom. But now, the judge on her way back from the court, herself and the driver were kidnapped. Naira
could have been in relation to any judgment she gave.
We don't know. So that's the thing, why people should try and see if you can connect the dots. But information is very scanty at the moment on that matter. Naira scarcity. CBN threatens banks, POS operators. They're asking people to report any of the banks or anyone who is found engaging in this act because they say, look, this is not right. But I just wonder how activities of such persons can impact Naira so much, you know. Even though the Minister of Information did say yesterday that the CBN is they're trying to print a lot more to ensure that they stave off this kind of
they need to do far much more because, look, yesterday, just speaking with, and I don't know, Lagosians can attest to this, Bukola and Ayo, we understand Egmi has been under maintenance for a while now, and so many parts of Lagos have been without electricity, some from between 3 to 5 days. It's been total blackout. We understand that attempts are now, on to bring power supply back, but it's been a period of hardship for, many families who, some of them have gone shopping for this season, money that is scarce. You take it, you shop with it, and then you come back and then there is no electricity to preserve the items that you have bought. In some instances, you want to buy petrol, to fuel your little generator. There are queues everywhere. You don't understand what is going on. And then to make matters worse, sometimes you don't even have cash. So there's cash scarcity. You're not wondering what precisely is it? Who did we offend?
Well,
I don't know if the authorities are really getting, they have a way of listening to the people at the grassroots. They don't really have that listening mechanism to understand what their experiences are like from maybe week to week, what their quality of life is like. I really do hope that electricity returns. And Bukola and Ayo, you guys can let us know. Well, that is if you're not living in Greater Lagos. But if it's also affecting you, you can let us know. I mean, or if you have heard this, if you've heard these tales of, maintenance and how it's affecting electricity supply. But really, it's been quite a harrowing experience for some Lagosians.
Yeah, but just before you guys go on with that one, when you come to the dailies, in case you're wondering, look at this. No blessing for same-sex unions. Nigeria's Catholic bishops insist.
Yeah, there's been plenty of misconception around that and misunderstanding. But certainly controversy is really brewing in the Catholic Church over the Pope's statement. But let's take a look at Daily Trust. We can always talk about that another time from those who should know. Daily Trust is another paper we're looking out for you here. Low turnout, lack of cash, federal government's 50% discount for travelers. 5 million commuters targeted for support. That's according to Information Minister. 5 companies approved for logistics. Racketeering returns to Rigasa train station. So they're very specific about the train station. So the Nigerian Railway Corporation has its work cut out for it to ensure that, racketeering is...
It's supposed to be online booking.
Exactly. But if a train station manager is not doing what he or she is supposed to do there, then some things will fall through the cracks because you see this report is very specific. You also find right here, Port Harcourt Refinery begins operation after Christmas. Oh yes, we've seen the gas flare, but I don't think that we're going to be seeing any fuel from there just yet. So we'll be waiting to see that. And this data is very important. 88% of Nigerians self-employed. That's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. So while employment figures now look like what we do not recognize anymore, people have said, oh, we've got to manipulate our employment figures. NBS says, no, we're just using new and modern standards. They released it, was it this week? But they also have very vital data which might interest the government. 88% of Nigerians are self-employed. NMPP supporters resort to prayers as Supreme Court reserves judgment. So yesterday they're expecting the ruling on Kano, Supreme Court judgment on Kano, and that didn't quite come out as expected. At the bottom here, CBN investigator. Excuse me. I did say something about the weather at the beginning of this program. Harmattan is in full swing here in Abuja, so excuse our voices from time to time. CBN investigator uncovers 593 foreign accounts opened by Emefiele.
Say what?
Yes, you heard. 593 foreign accounts opened by Emefiele. Over 543 million pounds in UK fixed deposits, more in USA, China. Additional infractions discovered in Nigeria. So you find all of the details on page 5 of the paper. Well, I hope this is not just some media thing we're just going to be seen on the pages. I mean, the man is currently in custody. Has he regained his freedom? I think he has. Maybe he's been able to perfect his bail conditions. But this is what you're seeing on the front page of Daily Trust.
This is mind-boggling.
It is. I mean, if this is really the situation,
it causes people mental breakdown if you try to process it or analyze it.
593 for on whose behalf? Is it on behalf of the federal government, on behalf of Nigerians, or on his own personal behalf? Oh, don't run ahead. Don't run away with the headlines. Read the story, please. Read the story. This particular story, read it, okay?
I'm almost running away with that headline.
Yeah, I know. It's very tempting to. But let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Up next is Daily Independent. But, for emphasis' sake, please read the story. And I'm tempted to ask, the CBN investigator, is he or are they acting on behalf of the federal government, on behalf of the prosecutor general of, the government? So read the story before we run ahead.
Aren't you supposed to resist temptations?
That's what I'm asking,
Okay.
So is he acting on behalf of the government? Let's not reach our conclusions yet, And let's also hear from Let's also hear from Mr. Emefiele's lawyer.
Okay.
So up next is Daily Independent. And by the way, Mark, you were also asking about the power supply situation. Some of us live in areas that are self-sufficient where power supply is concerned, but we're not removed from the challenges. And we know that a number of Nigerians also have become on their own self-sufficient where power supply is concerned, relying on their generators. But the cash problem, the CBN needs to speak to it. I spoke with POS operators the other day, and they say they've resorted to creative ways of sourcing for cash, that the banks, they're not relying on the banks anymore. The banks are not making cash available. So what exactly is happening, CBN? Please let us know. Daily Independent is up next this morning, and the big story is on the Port Harcourt Refinery. Of course, we heard the breaking news yesterday. NNPC attains mechanical completion of Port Harcourt Refinery, achieves flare startup of refinery's Area 5 plant. Dangote Refinery gets second 1 million barrels of crude. So cumulatively, we have Dangote, which is 650,000 barrels capacity, and Port Harcourt 1 refinery that has been completed and recommencing operations after Christmas has 60,000 barrels per day. So cumulatively, we have 710,000 barrels per day capacity. Hopefully. So my question is, will there be a fall in the price of petrol? And we also know that, the price of crude on the international market is going down as well. So, we need to ask these questions. We need to secure the commitment of the NNPCL, GMD, and the marketers to ensure that the price of petrol goes down. Nigerians deserve this. There are quite a number of other stories on the front page of Daily Independent this morning. This one will interest you. FG plans to increase flying hours to sunset airports for Yuletide. So, airline operators want to also be part of that largesse, not just increasing their flying hours. And lastly, Supreme Court reserves judgment in Yusuf Gawuna tussle for Kano Guba. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
The Nigerian Observer leads with firecrackers. Yes, check out the front page of the Nigerian Observer this morning, and what do you have? Firecrackers light up Nigerian skies despite ban and economic pressure. What does that mean? The details you'll find on the front page, and it continues on the inside pages, page 4 to be precise. Right above the nameplate, Edo steps up security, assures H-free Yuletide. Story is also there. And that picture on the front page, Nollywood's new capital, Edo to the world. What does that mean? Again, read the story. That's the Nigerian Observer this morning.
This Nigeria, let's try that. And the lead story here this morning, Nigeria's unemployment rate rises to 4.2% in Q2 2023, ascribed to the NBS right there. 88% of employed Nigerians primarily self-employed, only 12% engaged as employees. There you go. And then also at the bottom strip, Emefiele, special investigator, submits damning report to president. But okay, so there you go. Oh, they have a picture on the front page which they had reported previously, which says banks, industry chiefs panic as report on Emefiele ready for submission to president. Okay, so we'll see. That's this Nigeria today. Okay, so that also ends it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment to start off with the questions on Harcourt Refinery. Don't go away.
Today is a very unique day. You can recall that we ought to have held this Stakeholder meeting sometime in the month of November. But for some reason, maybe by providence, I was outside the country, GCO2 was outside the country, EVP was outside the country. Most of us were outside the country, and so we couldn't hold the Stakeholder. We rescheduled, and then something happened again, we were not in the country. And then eventually we resolved that it's better for us to hold today's Stakeholder. That will coincide, with the commencement of operations, of the Harcourt Refinery. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to bore you anymore because, people who have spoken before me have spoken all that I would have said, but just to announce to Nigerians that the fulfillment of our pledge, to bring on stream phase 1 of the Harcourt Refinery by the end of 2023, and the subsequent streaming of the phase 2 in 2024, we heartily announce the mechanical completion of flare startup on the 20th of December 2023. This heralds the commencement of production of petroleum products after the Christmas break. We want to thank Nigerians for their patience and the trust on the NNPC to deliver on our promise and mandate on the rehabilitation of our refineries. This is also another landmark on the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration.
The nation's oldest refinery emerges from a decade of failed deadlines, more than 2 years after the federal government approved funding of $1.5 billion to repair the facility. By 1972, 7 years after it was built and commissioned, the Harcourt Refinery 1 was debottlenecked from the initial 35,000 barrels per day capacity to 60,000 barrels per day production capacity. By 1989, another refinery was commissioned on the complex, known as the Harcourt Refinery 2, with a 150,000 refining capacity by the then military head of state, General Ibrahim Babangida. Together, this complex has a 210,000 crude refining capacity. According to international best practices, a standard refinery like this should undergo turnaround maintenance every 2 years. But between 1989 and now, it has skipped many years to witness only 3 turnaround maintenance, a culture that hopefully would change going forward. By 2019, owing to suboptimal performance of just 20%, the plant took its last breath. In 2019, the managing director of the NNPC celebrated the completion of the first phase of the refinery as one of the achievements of his management after a few months in office. But the project was to miss a number of deadlines for completion after the federal government awarded Italian engineering firm Maria Tecnimont a $1.5 billion contract for the rehabilitation work in April 2021. As the nation kept tabs on repair work, then Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, said the refinery in Port Harcourt would restart operation in December 2022. But December 2022 came and passed. Nothing happened.
It has also secured funding for the rehabilitation of the 3 existing refineries to ensure the nation's domestic refining capacity.
In May 2023, however, during Channels TV's visit to the infrastructure, the dark clouds appeared to shift for some indication of brighter days. Our cameras toured to capture footage of newly installed pumps replacing the old, welding works certified to meet what is a December deadline that has finally been met. Amid high hopes, however, that it would bring the much-needed relief to the nation's huge burden of petroleum products importation.
Are you satiated by the fact that the Port Harcourt Refinery is, according to the government, commencing operations immediately after Christmas? Well, let's have conversations around that with Dr. John Erine, who is an energy consultant and past president of the Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, our correspondent went to Port Harcourt and took some reports, brought some reports back to us. But maybe you just want to give us an understanding. When we hear that there is the stage we're at now in the Port Harcourt Refinery is what they call the EPC-IC stage of completion. And we also hear the minister talk about the mechanical completion, and that after Christmas, the whole refinery will begin to receive products. Can you take us through that process?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ayo. And thank you very much for having me. A slight correction first. EPCIC speaks to the framework that for the entire gamut of work that is required to take the refinery from the comatose state in which it was to an operational stage. That means engineering, procurement, construction, installation, and commissioning. So a contractor was engaged to undertake all these activities. From the announcement that came through the government's sources, mechanical completion has been achieved. That means that engineering, procurement, construction, and installation phases have been completed. That's the implication. That also means that what is left, the only process outstanding is the commissioning, and after that, the facility or the refinery should be able to operate on a regular basis.
Just to be clear, because when Nigerians, the layman hears commissioning, it sounds like tape cutting process. Okay, we want to commission the road for use, we want to commission the hospital for use and all. And is it the same in engineering or in the case of a refinery?
Yeah, for us professionally, commissioning has a slightly different connotation, or significantly different connotation. Commissioning means that you have completed the facility. Now you want to take it through the process of being able to perform the task you have designed and constructed it for. So you have to go through a gradual process of testing, verifying, checking, ensuring that every piece of equipment, every item that's installed is doing what is expected to do. And that ultimately what you're going to get at the end of the process is what you expect it to be. But you have your specification of your feedstock or your raw material, you have your specification of your finished product. Ultimately, your commissioning process will tell you whether you're able to convert your raw material, your feedstock, to the expected quality of finished product.
So when the minister says the mechanical completion has been achieved and you are validating that now, and this commissioning that you just talked about now, he also said that the refinery will start receiving products sometime after Christmas. Can you give us an idea of how long that is?
Sorry, about how long that is?
Yes.
Well, I'm not in a position to say how long that is. Okay. But going by the announcement by the minister and the and NMPCL sources, we're told that mechanical completion has been achieved.
No, the question I'm asking is, how long does the commissioning take?
Commissioning Commissioning, again, broadly can be in two phases. You have the pre-commissioning checks and then the final commissioning. And for a big process plant like that, it could take a couple of months. It's not likely to take days. It could take a month, it could take 2 months, it could take maybe perhaps up to 3 months.
Just to be
because it's a painstaking exercise.
Just to be clear.
And and also it's important to stress that we are dealing with a facility that is intended to process hydrocarbons, which are very flammable. And that means that it's a high risk operation. So that means that there must be very painstaking effort to ensure that that facility is built or it's rehabilitated to the expected standard.
Is the Port Harcourt Refinery ready to receive petroleum products or produce or refine petroleum products from after Christmas?
I am honestly not in a position to validate that.
But from professionally, do you think it is?
From the announcement, from the government announcement, I can surmise that the refinery is ready for commissioning.
Okay, and you say
not necessarily ready to start regular operations. That is the way I will process the information that has come to us.
Okay.
So realistically, commissioning, from what you're saying, may take 3 months.
It could take up to 3 months.
So Port Harcourt Refinery will not necessarily begin cracking, using the words of professionals now, crude products for commercial sale until maybe first quarter of next year. Is that when we should be preparing for?
I can say for certain that we cannot expect to see regular products from Port Harcourt Refinery until sometime in the first quarter of next year. That would be correct.
But is that also to say that because one of the questions a number of people have asked is, why deal with a 60, the smaller capacity refinery as opposed to the bigger one? Is that something that bothers your association as well, your society?
Yes, for us, Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers, and we actually wondered why that decision was made. Well, we don't have all the information at our disposal, but from our knowledge, professional knowledge as chemical engineers, we felt that a better decision would have been to, first of all, address the big and the more modern, more recent refinery train, which is the 150,000 refinery that was commissioned in 1989-90. That's more modern, more efficient, and that would have given us greater milestone. The old refinery, the 1965 refinery, it's a smaller one, 60,000 barrels, and it had actually been down. It hadn't operated for perhaps maybe 20 years or thereabout. So that was going to be a little more difficult, but we couldn't. we were not privy to the facts. And,
Do you key into the idea that it was probably a political decision by the administration because Dangote Refinery was going to come on stream and the government was relying on that, to take pressure off of it to fix the Port Harcourt Refinery 2 that has 4 conversion units rather than this one that has been repaired?
It's difficult to say. I don't think I'll key into that conclusion, because professionally, it would have made a lot more sense to address the issues of the 150,000 barrel refinery first. But only those who made this decision can actually tell us and justify why they decided to, first of all, address the 60,000 barrel refinery.
I was trying to, take in the implication of your explanation of what commissioning is. If that's what commissioning is, and really we shouldn't expect refined products to come from the repaired Port Harcourt refineries until about first quarter of 2024, and the federal government knows that Nigerians have been waiting and seeking some relief from petroleum products importation, why run ahead of time to make this announcement? Why not wait until the refinery can actually produce before this announcement is made?
And perhaps as surprised as you are, and maybe as concerned as you are, yes, the more important thing is to make sure we take time to do things properly. Nigerians have waited for many years, if not decades. So it doesn't really make a difference whether it's today or tomorrow. Okay. For as long as we are making progress all the time. So to me, the important thing is safety. Professionally, as chemical engineers, we're trained to design and operate in a safe manner. Process safety is of paramount importance. So we're very concerned that it is done properly, it's done safely, so that when we start operating, there are not going to be any safety incidents or stories.
Now, when the minister was talking, was also speaking about something that, Nigerians saw on the social media platforms. He talked about the commencement, he talked about mechanical completion and flare startup. That is the flare startup that people saw on social media and thought that was a thing. Can you please explain that to us? Because that's one of the bases upon which people are saying the Port Harcourt Refinery has started working.
Okay, thank you. There are perhaps 2 ways you could have flare startup, or you can have flare in a refinery like that. The first one, which is the more regular route, is when you introduce hydrocarbons into your process, into your facility, and you begin to process, then you have hydrocarbon gases that are generated, and you flare them off. That means that operation has actually started. But also, you can bring in gas, especially LPG, and inject it into the system in order to test your flare facilities. That is actually part of commissioning. To test your flare facilities, to make sure that they're working as designed, as well as some of your emergency relief facilities. Because those emergency relief facilities are tied to the safety of the process. So this is all part of the testing that has to go on before you can say that the refinery or the facility is certified for regular operation. So it needs to be ascertained whether hydrocarbon has been introduced into the refinery. There's no evidence, there's no record so far to show that hydrocarbon has been introduced. So it appears, but I stand to be corrected, it needs to be verified. It appears that what has happened in Port Harcourt is that LPG has been introduced in order to test the flare facilities.
So we can surmise then that the commissioning may have started from that explanation.
That is one small aspect of commissioning. Okay.
Yeah. Well, all of the possibilities give us hope, don't they?
Exactly.
Indeed. Our correspondent, leads us to believe that
the Port Harcourt Refinery 2 is also under repair and will be delivered soon. Speaking of which, the $1.5 billion contract given to the Italian company for this repair work since 2021, from your own perspective, as a professional, does it justify, what we've seen so far? Has that money been justified? Or do we wait until the delivery of petroleum products from these refineries before we can say that that amount has been well spent?
Thank you. For us as professionals, we would have perhaps addressed that problem in a slightly different way. And it still leaves room for concern. We believe that at the time that decision was made, it was better that the government, up till now, it is not very clear. There's no clarity from government on what is going to be the fate of the refinery going forward. In other words, certain factors led to the crumbling and the demise of the NNPC refineries. All the three of them failed. And clearly, there was a big issue with the business model and government ownership and operatorship of those refineries. It is not clear whether that issue has been properly addressed. There's no clarity from government on what is going to happen subsequently.
Under the Petroleum Industry Act, do the assets now belong to the NNPCL for management?
Yeah, they belong to NNPCL for management. And till today, NNPCL is a government-owned institution or company. But having said that, the important thing is that at the time that decision was made, we felt that the better option was to go ahead and privatize the refineries and bring in competent private sector operators who have the technical, operational, and financial capability to run the refineries. We advocated a model that was similar to the NLNG model, and so that they could take over, come in, bring in their resources in other, and they would manage the revamping or rehabilitation of the refineries in their own vision. One of the lingering problems that hasn't been addressed is that these refineries are being rehabilitated in accordance with the product specifications of 20, 30 years ago. Product specifications have moved on, have become tighter over the years, even in line with the specifications of the Standard Organization of Nigeria. Those refineries were not designed to meet those specifications. So apart from rehabilitation, there was need for upgrade of the refineries. That is not going on right now. So that is a little cause for concern. So we had preferred an option where private sector operators were to bring in their resources, do the rehabilitation, do the upgrade, and situate the refineries properly to meet product requirements of today, not product requirements of yesterday.
Consequently, if you didn't expect that the federal government would be the one pumping money into it. It should be a private sector initiative.
Absolutely. We didn't think public money should be going into it. We felt that it should be, even if public money was going to be involved, that should be in a subsidiary sense, not in a primary sense.
Sorry, did you just suggest that even under this contract awarded to the Italian firm, upgrade is not going on?
To the best of our understanding, there's no upgrade.
So what's going on right now?
Rehabilitation, as restoring the refinery to the state it was.
But what we need is upgrade in line with new technology.
We need rehabilitation. We also need upgrade.
But you said that the other part of the PH refinery is an upgrade already.
It is more modern. It is more modern. But the product specification, the specification of the products that come out from that refinery still do not meet today's standards.
Okay. Well, my colleagues in Abuja have questions for you, but just before we throw to them, just one question. What products and in what quantity should Nigerians expect from the PH refinery when it comes on stream?
Well, Port Harcourt Refinery is designed to process the two streams process 210 100,000 barrels of crude oil. But the oil refinery is for 60,000 barrels. So if it operates near 100% capacity, we should see it processing close to 60,000 barrels. By its design, I don't expect that it can do more than about 2 million liters per day. About that, yes.
PMS.
Of PMS, yes.
And other products?
Yes, it's designed to make other products.
Okay.
PMS, AGO, household kerosene are all designed to come from that refinery, as well as LPG and fuel oil.
All right.
Yeah.
Chamberlain.
Dr. Reina, good morning. Just wondering, I mean, when you say that it's an option for LPG to be imported and try to test the system, which is, if I did hear some engineers say that what they actually did was that they imported LPG, connected it to the flare, which is what people saw. And then they actually thought that if they were to do it the right way, the flare will come from gas coming from the refinery, waste gas coming from the refinery, which is actually meant to show that the refinery, at least its capacity is there for it to refine properly. What's your impression about that opinion?
Well, like I said earlier, it's either that we have introduced hydrocarbon into the refinery and we're generating waste hydrocarbon gases which need to be flared off, or that we brought in gas into the system in order to test the flare facilities. In the absence of any confirmation that hydrocarbon has been introduced into the old Port Harcourt refinery on mechanical completion, then we can only conclude that LPG was introduced into the system just to test the flare facilities. Some people may have then been carried away to believe, that the refinery has started operation. But I don't have any reason to believe that refinery is already in an operational mode.
Okay, now that is a little worrisome. I think that, we'll be waiting on the authorities to give further clarification. I think my colleague already asked you, how much you also think that this can produce, and you said 2 million liters of PMS. Now, from what you know, can we really, how much of our daily need, because at the end of the day, all of this excitement is about being able to produce locally, which should have an effect on the price of PMS locally. And I think that's basically what Nigerians are looking forward to, a reduction in the price. From now that the federal government has said, look, the refinery is back on stream, even though there are still questions about whether it is LPG that has been introduced or whether real hydrocarbons are being cracked in that refinery. From now, when this announcement has been made till when the products eventually hit the market, how soon, I don't know if this is under your purview because you're a chemical engineer, but how soon do you think Nigerians can begin to expect to feel an impact in the market of the effect of the start of the Port Harcourt refinery?
Thank you. Well, that's going to be very difficult for me to say with any precision because, one, I haven't visited Port Harcourt Refinery to have a personal assessment, and so I cannot say with certainty when I think the refinery can begin to make the desired impact. But on a general basis, we can surmise that the refinery, that if mechanical completion has been achieved now, then the next phase will be to do the pre-commissioning and then the final commissioning. And these take a little while, and it perhaps will take another couple of months to be concluded. And then we can begin to see products coming out from that refinery. But we'll also note that it's not necessarily eureka, in the sense that we're talking about a small Port Harcourt refinery, perhaps making 2.5 million liters of petrol per day, and which is the most sensitive product in the market. Consumption numbers are not very certain, but we can guess that our consumption is over 30 million liters per day nationwide. So that means that what is coming from this old Port Harcourt refinery is just going to be a small fraction of the requirement of the market. So that's not going to make a big dent in the market, but it's going to be one important step forward. I think it's important we also have a clear perspective on that.
This is not exactly related to Port Harcourt Refinery, but is related to local production, and it's one of the things that a number of Nigerians had also looked forward to, which is the Dangote Refinery, which we also understood took possession of another 1 million liters of crude, 1 million barrels of crude yesterday. I think journalists were led on that excursion to see how the ship was being offloaded at the SBM. For you, I mean, looking at a combination of these factors, I do not know, we're not very certain whether, primarily the products from the Dangote Refinery will be, for the Nigerian market. That is the hope of many Nigerians. But people have also mentioned the fact that it is situated within an export processing zone. So Nigeria can also, the refinery can also export to neighboring countries that might need it. But if all of the products, assuming majority of the products are meant for the Nigerian market, and we've already seen the delivery of crude to that refinery, and we've heard that the Port Harcourt refinery has also started working, how soon, given the and I know you're not privy to any of these refineries, but from the knowledge of a chemical engineer and one who knows how quickly products can be refined in this sort of refineries, how soon do you think Nigerians can expect, professionally speaking, to begin to see this product in the market?
Well, Dangote Refinery has already started taking hydrocarbon into its facility, so it's a couple of steps ahead. So we can expect that, all going well, if they have all the crude oil supplies they require, and there are no surprises, Dangote Refinery should be able to start injecting products into the market in the next month or two. In fact, even less than that, perhaps in another month, we could begin to lift products from the Dangote Refinery, like all being equal. So the Dangote Refinery is a couple of steps ahead. It's virtually ready to start cranking and to start injecting, delivering products to the market. Yeah, the Port Harcourt Refinery is following in its footsteps, and we expect that once the commissioning process begins and hydrocarbon is injected into the system and all the checks have been done, we can also begin to see the products in the market. So it takes a little while, but I believe that in the next 1, 2 to 3 months, we should begin to have products from these two directions into the market.
I know that also during the budget defense, because as I did say, for a number of Nigerians, it's not just about local production capacity, which we're looking forward to because, of course, of the numerous effects it would also have the value chain and being able to benefit from our crude, which is mined locally here. I'm also wondering whether you think that there will be any effect on the price, because I think at the budget defense, we did hear from one of the authorities in the industry that it might not exactly have an effect on the price. As I said, I recognize the fact that you're a chemical engineer, but how is price determined? And, at the end of the day, do you think the Nigerians can actually expect to see lower prices of petroleum products as a result of products now being refined locally?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting question that has been in the lips of very many. Basically, local refining should provide some advantage, even in terms of price. But that advantage is not likely to be enormous. It's likely to be just marginal, in the sense that the major driver, the most important cost component is the cost of the crude oil inputs into the refinery process. For as long as the crude oil is priced competitively in line with the world markets, then you're not going to see a drastic change or improvement or reduction in the price of the products that will come out of the refinery. But that being said, there are some other marginal cost elements on which there can be savings. Things like haulage, transportation, demurrage, port handling, and things like that. So when you're able to save on those, then you're able to make some marginal improvement in your cost, and that should also translate to marginal price reduction in the marketplace.
And I think if we send this back to Lagos now.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. So one of the other questions that one would want to ask you, Dr. Kinney, is from what you know and available data, what fraction of national supply and demand will be taken care of within the first 6 months of next year from the Port Harcourt refineries, from Dangote refineries and all of that? Because you may be aware, of course, that there are queues in fuel stations, even in Lagos. My colleagues in Abuja will say from time to time that there are huge queues all over the place, including at NNPC fuel stations. So how soon do you see all of these facilities that we have on our hands taking care of our supplies in such a way that people don't have to panic or queue for long hours at the fuel stations?
Yeah, that's a bit of a tricky question, in the sense that, and very embarrassingly, that we don't actually have a clear indication of what the local demand for petroleum products is, especially in terms of PMS, petrol. It is embarrassing. It's not very complimentary, but that's the reality. Having said that, on a very broad basis, in a very general basis, it's believed that if Dangote Refinery is operating at design capacity, has all the crude oil supplies it requires, and then if we have Port Harcourt Refinery also operating, then we should be able to we should be self-sufficient in petroleum products, especially PMS.
And is there a potential for exportation somewhere along the line in the future?
Oh, to start with, Dangote Refinery is designed in such a way that it has a lot of flexibility to deliver to the domestic market and also to export. Even the Port Harcourt Refinery also has that flexibility in its design. It's on record that soon after it was commissioned in the early 90s, it was actually exporting petroleum products to the international market.
I'm concerned about price as well, and I'd just like to follow up on Marquez's question. When haulage costs, transportation costs, importation costs from the sea has been taking off, that pressure has been taking off the nation, what measure, what percentage of reduction do you think is possible at all if we can hope for a price reduction?
It's difficult to give you a number of the curve right now, but that's why I indicated that it's going to be marginal, it's not going to be major, it's not going to be profound in terms of its impact. So, but I can't put my fingers on numbers right now on that because it requires a lot more calculation.
Yeah. One more thing from me, I'd just like to follow up. Earlier on, you said that, because of the nature of rehabilitation work that is ongoing, that the quality of products that we're expecting from the refinery may not necessarily be in line with international standard, if I got you correctly. What's the implication of that for the products that will be introduced into the market?
Yeah, the implication is that we're going to continue to struggle, that we're going to have a dilemma in our hands where the refinery is making product that doesn't quite meet the specifications that are even approved by our own standard organization of Nigeria, and yet to have those products going into the market. So that's going to be a dilemma.
Should we be concerned for our vehicles?
We should be concerned for not just the vehicles, for the environment, for our people, because these vehicles burn these fuels and eject and release spent gases into the atmosphere, and people breathe this. That's the whole purpose of tightening the standards in order to make, in order to improve on the, to reduce pollution of the environment. Yeah.
Well, we've come to the end of this session, but just to very quickly, you talked about the embarrassment of not knowing the number of liters of petrol, in particular, that we consume on a daily basis. What are we missing that's making that impossible for us to track?
Well, what we're missing is that we don't have reliable numbers. The different agencies, different bodies give us different numbers.
The challenge
and
here
at different
for me,
times.
Just a quick one. The challenge here for me is we know the number of tanks and the number of liters that leave the tank farms. We know also, or at least we should know, the number of liters of petrol that go to the fuel stations all over the nation. Why the disparity? Why is it difficult to track?
Yeah, that's in a simplistic sense, that's correct. But in reality, it's a lot more complicated than that, I can tell you for sure. And that's why there are different notes coming from different angles.
What makes it complex?
Part of it is that there are different interests at play. And so the numbers you're seeing are also tainted by interests.
Well, we have to thank you very much for this morning, and just hope that, as we always say, that the government, they have their jobs cut out for them. Dr. John Erine, energy consultant and past president, Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Ayo. Yeah, thank you.
We're back right after now to take on another conversation. Do stay with us.
Gathered here are senators and members of the House of Representatives elected under the platform of the All Progressives Congress, as well as members of the Fourth Estate of the realm.
May I, at this juncture,
the lawmakers have a bone to pick with Governor Harcourt Alia of Benue State.
Having watched with apprehension the absence of democratic leadership in Benue State in the last 6 months, exemplified by the arrogant and egocentric conduct of Governor Harcourt Alia, we have decided to draw the attention of Mr. President and other leaders of APC in Nigeria to seek their immediate intervention before the fortunes of APC in Benue State are totally destroyed by the Benue State governor. It is necessary to state from the onset that we have collectively and individually drawn the attention of the leader of APC in Benue State, Senator Dr. George Yakumen, who is now the Secretary to Government of the Federation, and who has on several occasions pleaded for patience from us in the anticipation of a possible change of attitude from His Excellency Governor Harcourt Alia.
They are also questioning the governance style of the governor.
Of the state, we have not had it this bad under the current leadership of Father Harcourt Alia. It is on this note, I want to say it is a crying shame that Benue State has become the personal property of one man who allocates government positions to his family members and friends. A man whose calling as a priest is to preach unity, fairness, and equity. Governor Harcourt Alia has, instead of uniting the state and making it an example as a man of God that he should be and expected to be, has elevated nepotism and hatred against the Idoma-speaking people of Benue State to a statecraft and made corruption an instrument to be glorified.
The lawmakers say they have exhausted all avenues to see the governor, which has failed to yield any results.
Well, we have Mr. Paul Biam, the Chief of Staff to Benue State Governor, here with us. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Well, many are surprised to have seen and heard that. They're wondering, what is going on? These are lawmakers from the same party, the APC in Benue.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Well, let me quickly thank you people, start by thanking you people for giving me an opportunity and also trying to make an in-depth inquiry as to whether something is actually wrong with our party and the government of Benue State. I made myself available, having also, as an observer, had the opportunity of listening to the press conference made up yesterday on the national television, precisely channeled by some members of the APC party who are representing us in the National Assembly. I will not be quick to say that it's actually a problem, but there are some misgivings concerning the leadership of His Excellency, the Governor of Benue State, His Excellency, Reverend Father Hassan Alia, PhD. I will also quickly identify with myself and assert that I know the persons who appeared on the television and made that communique read to the public. Let me give you a little background on my person to appreciate why I'm here and why it has become necessary that I appear to make little clarifications on issues bordering on whether there's crisis or misunderstanding in whatever form. Before being appointed as Chief of Staff to His Excellency the Governor, I have served in Benue State as a party secretary, the APC. And so I have started with them from the beginning up to the point that they were elected into National Assembly. It therefore means that I've been part and parcel of this party to the extent of understanding the party, processing their documents that made them to be a representative. Now, let it be on record that Governor Alia came into being as Governor of Benue State on the 29th of May. And I was also appointed as his Chief of Staff the following day. It also means that I must be conversant with the policies and actions of government from the beginning. And so what the entire thing I've read from what I heard yesterday and what you presented to me this morning in your studio is the fact that our governor, my governor, is dictatorial in nature. That is the fulcrum of what they presented to the public.
Yeah.
And I find it so appalling. Number one is what constitutes dictatorial ship. If a governor is elected by the people overwhelmingly, let it also be on record that from the inception of democratic governance, there has not been one person who has been governor of Benue State that has won with a margin that Father Alia won his election, which to a large extent establishes the extent of love and popularity on the person.
They faulted that, though.
Yes, I'm coming. I'm trying to establish the level of acceptability of our governor, Governor Hassan Alia, leading to his election. But beyond this, I listened carefully to the press conference, and I begin to put some questions before I begin to answer. They say it is a caucus of the National Assembly. They also told us that they were in a retreat. And I don't understand the retreat. Was the retreat a Benue retreat? Was it meant for Benue people? What was the target? Was the target to disparage the governor of Benue State? Because that was a communique that was read out as soon as they came out of the retreat. So I think ab initio, there was no retreat. There was assemblage of people who, by people's mandate, decided to disparage a governor that in 6 months has surpassed. And I want this with emphasis, because I have been a participant in Benue politics. Of all the previous 3 governors, I have been in one position or the other. And I'm saying this on authority, that this present governor that they allege in their press conference that has not achieved anything has been the governor that has surpassed all previous administration under the period being reviewed today.
About one of the points you made.
Yes.
They say that the governor joined the party when, of course, the party had the structure, had the strength, and then he now suddenly thinks that he's popular because of that. Now, no, it was because he came to the party which was already on the up. Yeah. If the thought he was that strong and go, why didn't he go to contest with ABGA or any other party?
That's why I gave you the background that I was secretary of the party. So I'm in a position to tell them how it happened. They were mere members. I was the engine room. By being a secretary, you initiate, you process, and let it out for implementation. And so I was in a position of receiving all applications of who wants to be governor, or who obtained a form and came to me for processing. And I should know when and how things were done that eventually got someone nominated and eventually became a governor. Above all, how many persons bought forms to become governor? Very serious, significant elder statesmen in Nigeria contested alongside with this reverend gentleman. Amongst them, Senator B.A. Agemade, among them, former AGF Ase Ondaka, among very serious people came.
Okay.
But you need at every point in any contest, you need a platform to fly a ticket. And so, Alia is a progressive, that's number one. He has never participated actively in politics. He took his time, did his research, came in to study the Constitution and Manifesto of APC, and discovered that his ideas and thoughts are in line with this party, and also sought to join the party and also vie for position.
They also said in that conference that the governor is treating them with disdain, and that he's arrogant and egocentric, and that they have reached out several times to the SGF, who himself is a former governor and former lawmaker, and he has told them, the lawmakers, to take it easy, just relax. Maybe he'll have a change of mind in terms of how he's conducting himself and handling a relationship with them. Yeah. So if there's no truth in it, will the SGF ask them, let's see if it will change, as they claim?
Well, I wouldn't want to join issues with them, but I'll try to explain our position as a government. I do not know what constitutes egocentric. I do not know what constitutes arrogance. But to the best of my knowledge, His Excellency came in and made appointments in government with full participation and consultation of stakeholders, including the SGF. And I told you that I was appointed from day one, so I'm in a position to know what took place that led to appointments and nominations of persons to various positions. Number one, it's a government collectively made by the people. And so it is expected that decisions should be inclusive, which is what the governor is doing. I was appointed as chief of staff because it's his personal staff. Even at that, some persons were consulted. I was privy to it, and eventually I was met. But you cannot constitute a cabinet of over 19 commissioners and imagine that no consultations will be. Let it be said, and this is why I say I know, that in the consultations, including our men in Abuja, made inputs, and there are documentary facts. Of the 19 commissioners, we had 7 commissioners were nominated by very powerful persons in Abuja, written on red pen, signed by them. We have these verifiable facts. At appropriate time, if they push up to the wall, we flash it on national television to see the handwriting and the names of the persons that were consulted and the nominations that they made. Those persons so nominated have constituted part of the Executive Council of Benue State today. And so I do not know what they mean by no consultation. To further buttress this, they were speaking about the newly constituted Caretaker Council. I wish that one of them appeared here with me so that we argue this. And they were, for 6 months that we've stayed in government, consultations at the level of stakeholders meeting, all inclusive, have been held twice. At this fora, discussions as to appointment to various positions are made. The last one, which is the local government council, all of these persons that appeared were in attendance. There are evidence. And now there are also not just, they were videoed. There are pictorial evidence. And the governor announced to them that he intends to constitute, they should go back to their local government and sit to their caucus and nominate 3 names. The nominations came to my office as chief of staff. If they push us further, we also show what came and their signatures attached to various lists that were sent. We have them. And so I do not understand, and that is why I say there was no retreat. It was just a conceived and conscious effort to malign the governor who has done so much in a period of 6 months.
Would you say then that perhaps the governor is mismanaging his politics? because these are not the only group of people to have made a complaint. Yeah. Local government chairmen too, before now, had also laid their own complaint when the governor was going to constitute a caretaker committee. Yeah. And part of the complaints we hear here now are now were repeated or were earlier raised by this local government chairman, saying that he was unresponsive, he was not reachable, and he was erratic.
You know, people will...
These are some of the allegations that, you know, we hear over and over again.
You know, people will naturally wish to complain where they shouldn't have been complaints. The local government chairman came out. We took over power on the 29th of May this year. And on assumption of power, we needed to verify. You do what is called agency's briefing to the governor of a state. And so we discovered that these governors, these chairmen were elected and were in power and were serving. And so the Excellency called them to a meeting and requested that they should give us a brief. It will surprise you or interest you to know that a brief that we brought by chairmen of various councils by their hand were forwarded to House of Assembly, which led to a review of the briefs. And we discovered that there were financial breaches. And the House of Assembly, in our wisdom, recommended that they temporarily step aside and allow the state to do an investigation based on what then themselves brought to the state. And so when they stepped aside, the DGS, Director Generals of Administration, were asked to take over. They were expecting that after the conclusion of the investigation, they may be called back. But we discovered the rot was too much, and it's documented. And so it is naturally expected that somebody was occupying a position and enjoying, and that an action is taken that may be counterproductive and not valuable to the person. You expect that there should be some kind of reaction.
Okay,
they were only reacting from a situation that was properly done or conducted with procedures.
Perhaps we can take that of the local government chairman as, you know, them being people who are just complaining because they've been they were affected, and you know. But what do we make of those members of the National Assembly? They are already. They're not directly affected by the governor in any way.
They are to a large extent. They're directly affected because they are members of the party. They are members of the party in the state. We owe them as a government a duty to report to them and seek advice and solicit for support. Now, how they are affected is that most of them are surrounded by mediocres. And when you ask them, please go back and nominate, because this is serious government.
Most of the lawmakers?
They are surrounded by mediocres. I'm making this bold to say because I can name names. And when you are requested or invited by a governor of a state to shortlist 3 names, and you go in a serious government like ours and nominate mediocres to be considered for heading a whole tier of government, and the governor of state look into their profile and say, well, these people are not qualified by my estimation, and then they are not picked, and among the 3 names, maybe their preferred candidate is not picked, and we decide to go neutral on a neutral name that came from another person because they are not the sole originators of the 3 names. And then you feel offended because your candidate or preferred candidate was not picked. These gentlemen are only reacting on an exercise that was justly conducted and fairly done.
No, but if you say that you had consultations with them, and the consultation was to get their ideas and also get their input, you tell them, go and bring 3 names, and then you bring them, they bring the 3 names, and you find none of these 3 names.
No, I said just a moment. Preferred candidate.
Okay, the preferred candidate. But you, according to what I also heard you say none of the 3 names were found suitable, so you get another name from another person who perhaps wasn't there. Doesn't it mean that initially, or ab initio, you had absolutely no intention of appointing anybody from whatever list they brought?
No.
What the governor wanted to do was always with him, and he just send them on a wild goose chase?
No, that conclusion may not be reasonable, because at the convention or the stakeholders meeting, the governor did announce to stakeholders that where names are brought and competent persons, you give criteria. You have a criteria in a caucus meeting.
What is the criteria? Were they clear criteria?
Bring us graduates. We want graduates who will mind the serious people who have had cognate experience. These were the criteria that were read out and spelled out at a general congress in Makurdi. And now you fall back and then pick somebody on a street who is not educated, who is your follower by maybe period of campaigns, and you want the person to be made a chairman. For God's sake, that is a tier of government. And the governor did warn. In a situation where we could not find this, we recourse to the Executive Council of those stakeholders who are with us in government are from that local government. So in various local government where we could not find, it's not all of them. For instance, in Gwe local government, where Achado comes from, the candidate, the person mining the local government, is his choice. And then they also allege that the person mining Dixon Taki's local government is of PDP. That is a callous lie. I don't think men of this high repute should come on a national television and begin to sing in a manner that is quite discordant, that is not in tune with the personality that is expected of.
How about this one?
Yes.
They said the election of the Speaker of the Benue State House of Assembly.
Yeah.
The position was zoned to Jengba block of Benue Northwest Senatorial District, which is coincidentally the birthplace of the SGF.
I agree with that.
So APC had 22 members out of a total of 32.
Yeah.
Governor Alia, they say, connived with the former governor Gabriel Suswam of PDP to produce a speaker different from the candidates preferred by the APC. And so they went on to say, in that same contest for the position of the speaker, after the governor held midnight meetings at the residence of Senator Suswan, he got 10 PDP members to align with 7 recalcitrant, in their words, APC members to beat the APC's preferred candidate by 2 margin, just 2 votes.
Yeah.
And they say this was what it then began his unholy alliance with the PDP to determine and maltreat legitimate members of the APC.
It's so sad. It's so sad that this could be coming from this serious gentleman who was representing us. First, I have been a parliamentarian. I have served 8 years in the State Assembly and also headed a position of majority leader for 8 years. And so I wouldn't say they are completely ignorant. I think it's mischief to some extent. Because if you're in a parliament, you understand the rules and procedures that leads to the election of principal officers of either of the chambers. Every member of an elected house or any legislative house is eligible to contest for either of the position. To the extent that you are eligible, you can aspire. That notwithstanding, I agree to the extent that it was jammed to Jemba. This I can agree. I agree to the extent that it is not only the other person that failed in becoming the speaker that is from Jemba. We had 4 members from Jemba, which makes all the 4 where it was zoned to eligible to aspire to become the speaker. Now, I agree also that APC has that number in the legislature. But what is politics in itself? Politics, by my definition as a political scientist who has practiced over getting to 30 years, is defined to me as a conscious attempt to outwit another. If lobbying from Chamberlain and getting him to lobby for you to win 2 votes, what is bad? I want to be speaker. I feel that if I approach you, you can help me become a speaker. Is it not politics? Is it not bargain? Is it not lobby? And so they are in the assembly, they are in the National Assembly. They knew the processes leading to. There was a time in Nigeria history here where a preferred candidate of a party, to be precise, the Senate president, the government, before they got into the chambers, the president of the Senate was elected. This happened in Nigeria. So it's about outwitting one another. That would be my practical definition of competition.
Yes, it's about, all of those negotiations, horse trading and the likes. But...
And eventually, the person who emerged as speaker and the current speaker of Benue State House Assembly is also from Jemba.
So should it be such that the members of the APC in the House will be surprised as to who emerged? If there was negotiation and it was going to happen, because they are saying that the governor had a hand in what happened.
It's a matter of voting. It's an election.
So the governor was involved in this?
No. It's not a matter of being involved. It's not.
What role did he play?
No, but nobody. If we have witnessed any set of parliament that declaration has been officially made and the commence proceedings, nobody stays in. It's in a closed session. Members...
Yeah, but you know that it's not just closed session, literally.
No.
You know what happens behind the scene before they go to that session.
Okay, if what had happened before we got in, and if they allege that that was the preferred candidate of the now SGF, then what happened that it didn't emerge? Because that would have been behind the scene negotiation, which meant that if there were any attempt at all, it means that they failed and they recourse into an open election.
Is it true?
And somebody won.
Is it true that the SGF also had a candidate, but the governor walked against that?
No, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that he had a candidate. Or he
was interested in a candidate.
All that I can confirm is that 2 persons from Jengba extraction aspired to become speaker, and 1 was eventually elected as a speaker. And so that is the extent to which...
Who is favorably disposed to the governor.
Who is also from Jengba. I want you to... Because the allegation is that it was done to that place. Did the governor in any negotiation, whatever negotiation, assumed to have taken place, did he take it out of Jengba? Is a person elected not qualified to be...
So the government decided to play safe and say, okay, since it's Jengba, therefore, I'll go with this one. If people go with this, I go with this.
In politics, I'm not talking in reference to governor. Even in this office where you are sitting, amongst your staff, you could have preference for another.
So that's what happened here.
Which is tenable.
So that's what happened here.
No, not in Benue. I say I'm not talking in respect.
No, I'm talking with respect to the speaker.
I'm talking of human situation. Human situation allows that you could naturally have interest in a person.
So the human situation, relates to the example that
No.
given right now.
It does. I'm talking this one as a person. In a parliament, Chamberlain had told us here that once it is proclaimed, all doors are closed. Persons who are interested approach the clerk of the house who presides, and elections are called upon. Those interested are voted for. Those that have the highest number of votes becomes principal officers of the house.
I think of all the allegations, one of the ones that really disturbs me is the hatred, the allegation of hatred against the Idoma people, the Idoma-speaking people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's something that should trouble you.
Yeah,
people are accusing the governor of nepotism and also favoring, his family members, etc., in appointments to the detriment of an entire ethnic group. Some people will say that certainly speaks to the foundation of the state.
I find it difficult to respond to this allegation for these reasons. Assuming that the gentleman gave statistics, assuming that he said that this is what is happening and these are the number of persons being appointed in this ethnic group and these are the number of persons being appointed here, I would have been in a position to respond with figures. But I don't know that kind of a wide allegation, what he actually meant. Are the Idoma people not in the executive council? Are they not appointed to parastatals? Are they not serving? Just to convince us, the head of service of Benue State government is an Idoma man. The commissioner for finance and the commissioner for finance and the superintending commissioner of economy of Benue State is an Idoma man. The deputy governor of Benue State is an Idoma man. And so many other executive secretaries of parastatals and boards and commission. We have 19 members of the council. This is why I say I will find it difficult. Assuming he said that there's no member of the Idoma group that is not in. How many are there? And this is what he would have done to us, to both trace and tell the world that this is actually nepotism being orchestrated by my governor. But indeed, if a governor can find it quite expedient to concede the position of a commissioner of finance, who comes to the federation account, who knows what is in the post, who has the authority also to expressly give permission for payments to be made. If a governor can find a head of service who coordinates the entire civil service of the state, what more?
So what about when they say his immediate community of Kunav is cornering all the strategic positions in government?
And you see, this here again, you are asking me. If they had brought out the positions, I wouldn't be substantiating the allegations made by them. But I will only tell you that I know that it is not true because I know that the Kuna people where the governor comes from share some position as good as... I am not from Kuna people. The position of a chief of staff is a personal staff. It is one of the highest in government. if the governor did not find it convenient to give it to the Kuna people, what more is in government more than the position of the chief of staff? But I should pretend over all of them.
And so
he gave to Ukum people who are on the far side of the divide across the river.
But they also categorically stated here, even though you said, look, these allegations are not true, but would they be lying saying the governor has not had any meeting with any member of the National Assembly elected on APC, and he doesn't pick their cause?
Yeah, Chamberlain, I told you when I came here, I made jokes informally. I've appeared here before. I'm a man of my words. I take responsibilities for the things I say. That in a spate of 6 months that we've been in government, all-round stakeholder meetings have been held twice. No government before this administration has attended that feat.
Is it general stakeholder meetings?
Yes, general.
Not National Assembly members?
No. When you are doing a general stakeholders meeting, it includes all National Assembly members are invited. And in all times, a substantial number of them are in attendance. Those that do not attend sent in apologies. And announcements are made as to why they were unable to attend. And decisions are collectively taken. Now, let me tell you why somebody could blindly make this kind of assertion. The reasons are that because you are a politician, because you went in to seek for elections, and because you were fortunate to be elected, to some extent, you owe your constituents some kind of allegiance and a feedback system that requires some dividends. Now, most times when you come into a position like that, you are expecting, maybe to an extent, what is not available. These gentlemen have forgotten how deplorable the state was that we came in and met. When we met the state, it was nearly at zero level. And then when demands are being put on a government that is barely managing to consolidate and stabilize and begin activities to bring out this. So maybe because of the paucity of those things, you are not attending to them. And they recourse to blackmail. I attend this blackmail because blackmail to an extent that you imagine that you call your governor, he does not pick a National Assembly member. Is it tenable anywhere in a system? Okay. Is it possible? Is it because your demands are not met that you resort to blackmail and make us to
what demands
twist us?
What demands
make us? Yeah, demand in terms of give me this to do this to my people. Demand it could have been done.
Why is he not doing it?
No, it could have been done. I'm trying to explain the situation that we made the state in. Every situation to an average Benue person, including them, they know.
I mean, the demands
has been so deplorable.
Wait, are you suggesting that
to repair?
These members demanded something from the governor? He didn't give into that demand.
Listen, I told you a scenario of a politician who is representing his people. He will certainly make demands on a system. And because the things are scarce and they are not available to the extent that we know, sometimes may become a problem and you resort into twisting and blackmail. This is what I'm saying.
Has the governor called any meeting that is not general stakeholder meeting strictly for members of the National Assembly in APC alone?
You see, the governor cannot just sit and begin to initiate meetings. The National Assembly, in court, as they came out yesterday, who called them to a retreat? They have a caucus where they sit and discuss their issues of governance and national issues. If they have issues at the state that necessitated their meeting with the governor, don't forget that I'm the chief of staff. They'll write a letter to me or put a call to the governor who will instruct me to put a meeting together.
The members do have to write a letter?
Yeah, you're right. It's a caucus. You would seek a formal meeting. But if you do not want a formal meeting, you can also put a call across to the governor and seek to have audience with him, maybe on an individual basis.
So that hasn't happened yet?
As a group. It has happened twice to my knowledge as chief of staff.
Along with the members?
I coordinated meetings, not if they assemble themselves 7 out of maybe 14, and they call it a caucus, and we have 6 in the meeting in Makurdi. I can as well admit that we met with the caucus twice.
Is the governor in good relationship with the SGF?
To the extent that I know, reasonably, yes. Why do I say to the extent that I know? There has not been any open confrontation between my governor, the governor of Benue State, and the SGF.
Matured, man. It cannot be open confrontation.
No, I'm coming. But I do know, as a matter of fact, emanating from this press conference, that certain big men in Abuja Certainly, and I make bold to say because I know, because I belong to the system. I may not know them, but I know, and I'm happy to. Let me stop to commend the journalists that covered the press conference. The questions that came from them were quite incisive and inexhaustible. I thank them so much for doing justice to that press conference when they asked, and I repeat here, because of hindsight, as to why consistently over past previous administration, there have been problems, the governors have been having problems with one man, the SGF. And the persons who appeared in the press conference to me were unable to answer. You have problems with Suswam, your immediate predecessor. You had problems with Autumn that led to his decamping to another party. And then you are currently having some misunderstanding with the current government. It was asked. And they could not give satisfactory answer. All that they could defend is that in all their press conferences, they did not mention this sponsorship. We're not saying these men are honorable people. They are voted in, they have income that they can organize and do a press conference. They mustn't necessarily be sponsored. But the truth is that what is the spirit behind this retreat? What retreat? A retreat to bring a communique to tell the world the dictatorial tendencies of a governor, how shrewd and egocentric he is.
You think you're sponsored?
No, but that is the communique that came out.
Are you suggesting they were sponsored?
What is a retreat? A retreat is a gathering to enable you to fresh review.
Mr. Biam, are you suggesting unseen hands in that press conference?
If you ask me, yes. Unseen hands, certainly. I said the Abuja people.
Abuja people.
Abuja
SGF
people.
is in Abuja.
Well, I would, by inference. Abuja people. Abuja people. We have stakeholders of this party and very critical ones in Abuja. That to the extent that this kind of an attitude is being orchestrated and brought to the public, no one of them has come out publicly to condemn.
Let's go to
Does that not conclude that they are also part of it?
Let's go to Lagos.
Have hands in it. And when Chamberlain confronted me that the SGF2 is an Abuja politician, I did accept. And I said there are some big men here who subterraneously may be responsible for this. I didn't shy away from that fact. And I won't shy away because I know. I'm in a vintage position to know that some Abuja politicians, and I gave an example, I also tried to buttress. If this kind of thing is going on, a retreat that was meant only to bring a communicate to tell the world the dictatorial tendencies of a governor who has done so much for his people, not minding the position of the common man on the street in Benue State, and there is no single remark coming from the Abuja politicians, won't you, in your own estimation, conclude that they are behind it?
These big men that you refer to.
Has anyone?
These big men that you refer to, is the SGF perhaps one of them?
No, it may not be one person. Of course, we have very big men from Benue who are residing in Abuja who are also holding position. I'm just mentioning SGF over time because it's holding the most visible one. And so I could say most of them are aware. And I'm saying this by inference because as stakeholders who are representing us in Abuja and in very serious, significant position, they ought to have made comments in response to what took place yesterday. It's a papa bullshit by making conscious effort to undermine and malign a governor who has done so well for his people in 6 months. And I'm surprised and appalled when I listened to one of them say that no one single project has been done by this previous administration. And
just one question from me, if you can hear me. My apologies, Mr. Biam, if you can hear me. Just one question from me. It's one of the things that's also been said at that conference is that the governor, recommended that they should send him names of administrators for local government for the local governments from among them. Is that correct?
Yes, in a stakeholders meeting, yes.
Okay. So is it right, constitutionally speaking, for a governor to appoint administrators as opposed to have elected officials of local governments, chairmen elected by the people, as opposed to appointing administrators?
It may not be constitutionally right, but we are all witness to political developments in our country. At a certain point in this country, a doctrine of necessity was introduced in trying to resolve situations. Am I correct? And so here again, we found ourselves in a situation where local government chairmen, through the instrumentality of the House of Assembly, whose responsibility is to oversee local governments and make laws on their behalf, were found wanting and recommended to his governor to allow them step aside for further investigation. In a continuous situation where the local government administration had no clear-cut leadership, the doctrine of necessity has to be applied in order to stabilize the system. It has been applied before. And so it is not as if we are saying that it's a constitutional right. No. But in a situation where there's a vacuum, we needed to quickly close it up using precedents of what has taken place in Nigeria before to enable us get to the next level.
You know that our lawyers will take you up on that, as it cannot be closed up in the way you say it. But it's a matter we will revisit and then take a look at how some of this is playing out. So we have to thank you for coming on this morning. But just quickly, some messages before we quickly run away from here. Abiru Kenneth says about Benue politics. This political crisis, I think they are becoming too much. Yesterday it was Rivers. Today is Benue State. Granted, crisis is part of politics, but if it is exaggerated, it becomes a distraction. Nigerian politicians should learn to place the people's welfare above their personal and political interests. That's what it means to be a public servant.
Indeed. I mean, one of the questions I wanted to ask before we wrapped up was how the governor intends to, resolve this, because obviously this is a crisis that is brewing. But Dixon Eckert now is also writing on the 50% discount. He says the Yuletide gift of 50% discount for buses and free train transportation from Mr. President to Nigerians is good, but a reduction in the pump price of petrol would have been better, more meaningful, reduce inflation, and possibly reach everybody. How many people can 5 transport companies carry in 14 days? Most of the 5 transport companies listed only ply the southern routes. This rather looks like another window of corruption. The federal government should cancel this gift and rather give us a New Year gift of a reduction in the pump price of petrol. After all, they're still paying subsidy in style.
Really?
Yes to New Year gift. Now, Kumene Thompson says the purpose of local production is for price of that product to be lower and more affordable than the one that will be imported, because the cost of haulage, vessel bringing in the refined product, taxes and forex exchange rates issues will no longer be built into the landing cost. I will want to say that the sales price of PMS produced locally from this country should be reasonably lower than imported one.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. Gregory says about government sponsorship of pilgrimages. We're all aware that Nigeria is a conglomerate of many nations, each one having its own culture, beliefs, and aspirations. Being a sensitive issue, the federal government should totally disengage from sponsoring persons on pilgrimages, whether Christians or Muslims. However, the issue should be left to the individual states to determine whether or not to use their resources for sponsorship in fulfillment of the culture of the people and aspirations. That state governments and their people should know better where the shoe pinches them. Well, that's the program this morning. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your day. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Do make memories this Christmas. We intend to. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Koka.
And have a great weekend while you're at it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Look, Merry Christmas. Go out there, enjoy yourself, Jerry. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.